All right, good afternoon. We're delighted to be joined by Jean-Pierre Lacroix, who, as you all know, who needs no introduction, but we will introduce him, is the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, who's here to brief you as we mark the International Peacekeepers Day. Jean-Pierre, please, welcome.
Thank you, Steph, and a very good afternoon to all of you. So as we just said, this is today the International Day of Peacekeepers. It has a special significance today because this is the 75th anniversary of UN Peacekeeping. It also has an additional significance since today is also Africa Day. And as you know, most of our peacekeepers are deployed in Africa. So it's a day that provides us with the opportunity to commemorate the sacrifice of our peacekeepers, but also to celebrate their achievement. As you probably know, the SG has just a couple of hours ago posthumously awarded the Dag Hammarskjöld Medal to 103 peacekeepers who died last year, including 32 killed in hostile incidents. And we also honored Captain Cecilia Erzwa of Ghana, who has just completed her deployment with UNIFIL in Abia. We honored her with the Military Gender Advocate of the Year award. Her outstanding efforts to build stronger relationship with the community, particularly women, contribute to improve protection of peace-building efforts in the very challenging environment of Abia. And basically that reference to the award to this very brave female officer from Ghana is a segue, I believe, between the commemoration of the sacrifice of those peacekeepers. I would remind you that since the creation of peacekeeping operation, the first operation was created in 1948, we had 4,200 peacekeepers killed in the service of peace, or who died rather in the service of peace. Again, we commemorate the sacrifice, but at the same time it's important to acknowledge and celebrate their achievement. And I believe that these achievements are of different nature. There's a long list of countries that have been supported by peacekeeping operation in their path towards restoration of stability. Countries such as Sierra Leone, Cambodia, Namibia, Côte d'Ivoire, Timor-Leste, and so on and so forth. The list is long. But I think it's important to also celebrate the day-to-day achievement of our peacekeepers. Our peacekeepers, in spite of all the challenges, preserve ceasefire from collapse, from resumption of hostilities in places such as southern Lebanon. And in spite of all the challenges that they're facing, particularly in the biggest operation in Africa, they protect every single day hundreds of thousands of civilians. And I visited myself many locations where thousands, sometimes hundreds of tens of thousands of civilians are directly protected by our peacekeepers. I remember one of my visits in IDP camp in Italy where more than 40,000 IDPs were protected by a company of our peacekeepers. So this is important, I believe, to underline these day-to-day achievements, but it is equally important also to reflect about the challenges that we're facing. And as you know, these challenges to peacekeeping operations and to our peacekeepers are probably greater than ever. And I believe that the first and the major challenge that we're facing is one that the UN is facing as a whole, which is the increased division amongst our membership. Because every single peacekeeping operation is a political undertaking, and it is aimed at supporting political efforts. But we're much more likely to succeed in supporting these political processes, in these political efforts, when we have a united international community and a united Security Council in particular. Unfortunately, we don't have that, and this has a negative impact on the progress of the various political processes that are inextricably linked to our peacekeeping operations. So this is the major challenge, I believe, that we're facing, but we're also facing other challenges that are impacting the population we serve, as well as our peacekeepers. Some of these challenges have to do with the fact that the attacks against our peacekeepers are becoming increasingly violent and sophisticated. And fortunately, the blue helmet or the blue flag doesn't protect anymore from those attacks. Our civilian colleagues as well as our humanitarian colleagues are increasingly affected by those threats. In addition to that, we're massively impacted by misinformation, disinformation, which is a major weapon against our peacekeepers and against our efforts. We are also facing the impact of the new, or not so new, maybe the emerging drivers of conflict. Many of the, actually most of our conflicts, we see the impact of climate change resulting in more exacerbated competition for natural resources and resulting tensions between communities, particularly herdsmen and farmers. We see the massive impact of transnational criminal activities, such as the illegal exploitation of natural resources, the trafficking in weapons, drugs, human beings, and massively funding and fueling armed groups, and therefore violence against civilians. And therefore, we need to address these challenges. We need to constantly adapt peacekeepers so that we can be up to these threats and issues. This is what we're doing with the various initiatives that we're currently pursuing under the A4P Action for Peacekeeping umbrella initiative. We currently have an implementation plan which is called A4P+. I will not go through the long list of the efforts that we're currently making, but it suffices to say that we prioritize the safety and security of our peacekeepers. We work on improvised explosive devices. We have a strategy we call the strategy for the digital transformation of peacekeeping, so that we make sure that we will make the best use of these technology, including for the purpose of protecting our peacekeepers, but also countering misinformation, disinformation, and improving our ability to collect information on the ground and process that information. We're also working to improve the role and increase the number of women in peacekeeping. I believe that we are making a lot of progress in that area, but more needs to be done, and it's really a question of effectiveness. We just had a very gracious reception that was offered as every year by India following the commemoration of the Dargah Marshal, the awarding of the Dargah Marshal Medal. And one area which is critically important to us is accountability for crimes committed against peacekeepers. I'm mentioning this because India took the lead in promoting progress on that issue, and I believe that it's very important to make sure that there will be accountability for these crimes. Now, in addition to improving the tool of peacekeeping, we also need to look at how collectively as a UN system we can better respond to these to the drivers of conflict that I alluded to. The impact of climate change, impact of transnational criminal activities, global terrorism. And in order to be able to do that better, I think we must think about whether and how the mandates of peacekeeping operation could evolve, and they have evolved significantly over the last decades. But I think we also need to emphasize and make more efforts towards what I call the more networked multilateralism, because these drivers of conflict that I'm talking about, they are regional and global in nature, and most of our peacekeeping operations are deployed in a single country. So we need to partner more with other entities within and beyond the UN system so that we can better address these challenges. And I believe that this is really something on which we'll have to focus moving forward. Finally, today there has been also a discussion on the support to African peace enforcement operation. I think it's important to make progress in better supporting AU or more generally African peace enforcement operation, because it's clear that there is a limit to what peacekeeping can do, and whenever enforcement is required, then those who undertake these kind of operation and may not necessarily have the financial resources and other means to carry out these operations need to be better supported. I believe that it is important to move forward on that particular issue. It's not an either or, it's not either peacekeeping or peace enforcement. It's just to make sure that depending on the needs, there will be adequate responses from the international community to the various crises that we're dealing with. And with this, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Celia?
Thank you for the briefing. I'd like to know what can be done, like in countries like Central African Republic, when clearly Wagner has taken the lead and it's stopping the UN people from doing the job. I mean, it's a little like that in Mali, but it seems that in the Central African Republic it's really bad. So what can be done?
Should I take
Yeah,
other
please.
questions? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we've said time and again, but that as far as a particular member state, and even including a host country of peacekeeping operation, it is not for us to tell this country what entities they have to partner with, or what entity they shouldn't partner with. What we're looking at is the impact of those partnerships. Are these partnerships contributing to the implementation of our mandate? Or do we have a problem resulting from these partnerships in implementing our mandates? Are these partnerships conducted in full respect of international humanitarian law and human rights? And if that is not the case, then we report to the Security Council, as we've done in the past. And of course, we interact with the host government, with the authorities, because ultimately, of course, they are the one responsible for making sure that our mission can deliver on the mandate. Yes, we've had issues. We have had in several occasions restrictions of movement. We've had, of course, to report on instances where there were allegations of violation of human rights. But I think that would be stretching it too far to say that our mission in Central African Republic cannot operate. I think it does operate. I believe that it plays a major role, probably a critical role in preserving Central African Republic from a much worse situation. And I want to add that Central African Republic is also affected what is happening in Sudan, with I believe more than 10,000 refugees having crossed the border towards the Vakaka province of Central African Republic. So yes, of course, we have issues, and I believe resulting from this partnership. But I think it would be stretching it too far to conclude from that our missions, both in Central African Republic or in Mali, cannot operate anymore. They do operate anymore. They do continue to operate, and I believe they continue to play a very important role, not only for the stability of these countries, but also for the protection of civilians.
Thank you. Ephraim?
Thank you so much. I have a question on UNIFIL, actually, in Lebanon, particularly on the killing of the investigation in the killing of Irish peacekeeper Sean Rooney last year. We know that many investigations were launched. The Lebanese one was concluded pretty fast, pretty quickly. My question is, what do you think of the results of the Lebanese investigation? Do you trust it? Do you trust the findings? This is number one. Second, on the UNIFIL investigation, are we going to see a public statement about the findings of the UNIFIL investigation? And what do you think of the ongoing UN Board of Inquiry investigation? Is it going well? Do you think you have enough international support for it? And you also were in Lebanon not so long after that. What was your message specifically to the government, to Hezbollah, and do you have concerns over Hezbollah's behavior and attitude towards the peacekeeping force there? Thank you.
Thank you. Concerning the death of Private Rooney, first of all, it was, of course, a very moving moment when this morning the medal was awarded to by the Secretary General to the Ambassador of Ireland, and I believe the Chief of the Armed Forces of Ireland was also present in New York, and we again present our condolences from to Ireland and to the family of Private Rooney. There is a judicial investigation going on in Lebanon, and of course we encourage the relevant authorities in Lebanon to pursue this process to make sure that there will be accountability. It's critically important for us. It's of course critically important for Ireland and for the family of Private Rooney as well. In the meantime, yes, there has been an inquiry, a board of inquiry, and as well, which is basically about stating, what exactly is happening and how to draw lessons from the future. There has been a UN investigation. You would understand that since there is a judicial investigation ongoing, then there isn't much that I could or should say on these investigations. Turning to the message to the Lebanese authority. I think the key message is the following. This is a tragic incident that occurred because of a certain negative context created regarding UNIFIL. And that context, or the sort of negative context, was fueled by misinformation, disinformation that was propagated about the role of UNIFIL. So essentially, when I was in Lebanon in January, my message to all my Lebanese interlocutors was it is important that the Lebanese stakeholders, the Lebanese leaders, should be more vocal in their support to UNIFIL. We hear from the Lebanese interlocutors, all of them actually, that they want UNIFIL to continue in Lebanon. We hear and we take note of the position of Lebanese authorities in support of this mission. But it is important that there should be more clarity from all these Lebanese stakeholders, all these Lebanese leaders in support and in explicit support to UNIFIL, because otherwise these negative messages that are propagated about UNIFIL, this misrepresentation of its mandate, could lead to further accident and potentially further tragic incident, and that would certainly undermine UNIFIL and potentially the support that this very important operation benefits from all of us, really, and from the member states as of today.
Thank you. Evelyn?
Thank you, sir. Could you elaborate on Celia's question on Wagner? What are they doing in Mali, where they seem to have a large operation, and through most of the Sahel, but particularly in Mali?
I mean, we're not a sort of information or intelligent agency when it comes to what is happening in Mali. What our priority is to implement our mandate in support of Mali and in support of the people of Mali. As I indicated earlier, if we find ourselves, or if our colleagues in MINUSMA find themselves in situation where they faced restrictions of movement or other restrictions, and that these restrictions are or can be allegedly attributed to, as we call them, other security personnel, because the name is always very difficult to sort of tell exactly whom we can be dealing with. Then again, we have to report that. If there are allegations of violation of human rights that are also potentially attributed to these actors, then we have to report that, and we have done it, as you know, on a number of occasions. But again, I want to emphasize that the mission in Mali continues to implement its mandate. There are a number of restrictions, and as you know, the next report of the Secretary General regarding the situation of in Mali and the situation of MINUSMA will be issued soon, in the early days of June. We will certainly comment on these restrictions, but I think it would be, again, stretching it far too far if we were to say that the MINUSMA doesn't, is sort of prevented from operating. It does operate. It does protect a very high number of civilians. I went to Mali in last December. I went to Gao, met with the representative of the population there, and I can tell you that the feedback that we got from them was very, very positive, actually. And lately, we've seen expression of support, public expression of support from the population in the areas where MINUSMA is deployed.
You said to report. To who do you report to? The Russians?
To the Security Council. This is what we do on a regular basis.
Thank you. Linda?
Thank you for the briefing. My question is in terms of sexual abuse by peacekeepers. Obviously, it's been widely covered in the press over the years. But what's your sense of where things stand at this juncture? Has it increased? Has it been decreased? Or is it all the same?
I think SEA, and not only in peacekeeping, but generally speaking across the UN system and beyond, it's probably the issue where, first of all, it's probably the one issue that can really undermine the work that our colleagues are doing in the field, and because it takes only abuses committed by a few to tarnish the word of so many thousands of peacekeepers and humanitarian colleagues and others. So that's number one. Number two, I believe that this is an issue where we're better equipped to make sure that the allegations are brought to our knowledge and then to support the victims, and also to ensure that there will be action taken when we're faced with these allegations. But I think we need to go further because this is an issue that it won't be going anywhere. We need to be disrupted on SEA. We should never be content that we improved our tools. We're implementing a number of policies, and everything is fine. That's why we are working very, very closely with the other colleagues involved under Secretary Generals that are working with DPO on sexual exploitation and abuse to make sure that we go further. Because yes, I believe that we're better equipped, but and we've taken on some occasions very drastic measures, including the full repatriation of an entire contingent as a result of allegations against or affecting that contingent. But we need to continue to our efforts, and we need to, again, we need to be disrupted there, because it's I think it would be probably an illusion to believe that one day we will have 0 cases. I think what's important is to make sure that action is taken when we have cases. And of course, we need the support of our member states. We need the support of our troop and police contributing countries. There is more awareness, there are more action taken, but still more needs to be done.
And just another question. In terms of the violence in many of these peacekeeping operations, that certainly there's been a proliferation. There's been a proliferation of violence in various peacekeeping operations, and of course you mentioned private security in various countries. But I was wondering, across the board, do you see a resistance on the part of some countries to even offer peacekeepers because of this more violent, actionable kind of role?
I mean, yes, the environment in which our peacekeepers are operating are more challenging, and there are more threatening and violent, but I don't think that this really deters member states from supporting us and offering us, their troops and their police. I mean, in some cases, of course, you see you have member states sort of withdrawing some of their units. That is happening all the time. That isn't new to us, but we don't have a problem with finding new units or new capacities and new troop contributing countries and police contributing countries. Actually, more countries are volunteering for that. The problem is that it takes time. For example, when one unit withdraws from a peacekeeping operation, then it takes time to sort of replace that unit. So that's really a challenge we're facing, because also we have to make sure that there will be adequate training, preparedness, equipment, and all that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up on the previous question.
I'll just get back to you 2 seconds. Frank?
Yes, hi, Frank Uziardo from TRT World. Thank you for doing this. Can you hear me?
A little louder.
A little louder, please.
Okay, great. About a week ago, the Sudan's ambassador sat.
A little closer to you.
You can hear me now better. Okay. About a week ago, Sudan's ambassador sat in the chair you're sitting in, and he blamed the UN and the Security Council for what's going on in his country right now with the fighting. He also said that he blamed the Security Council for not lifting the arms embargo. He said we can't defend ourselves. What's your reaction to that kind of statement?
Well, I cannot really speak about the situation in Sudan in detail. I mean, I will, first of all, give you the most simple explanation, which is that we don't have a peacekeeping operation in that country. But more broadly, our UN colleagues are doing really their best, both on the political side and on the humanitarian side, to try to, first of all, support the population that is affected by what is happening in Sudan, and also to support political efforts. By the way, this is a situation that, in addition to be, of course, massively impacting the population in Sudan and destabilizing that country, it is also affecting a number of neighboring countries where we have peacekeeping operations. I would mention the South Sudan. I would mention the Central African Republic. I already alluded to that, and also not sort of unsung but very important operation that we have in the so-called Box of Abyei, which is essentially a disputed territory between Sudan and South Sudan.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Follow up to her question. Just when you say peacekeepers could use disruption when it comes to handling SEA or forestalling it, what kind of disruption are you thinking? Along what lines? And then I have another question.
No, I think that what I'm trying to say is that if we approach SEA from the point of view of look, okay, we will have all these policies, and at some point the problem will be solved. That won't happen. And by the way, I want to highlight that there is no specificity in terms of that. There's not a higher incidence of SEA in peacekeeping than in other UN activities. But that's not the point, because I think that it's even more unacceptable if it comes from a peacekeeper. What I'm trying to say is that, on the one hand, we need to keep implementing and probably building on the new tools that we have in terms of supporting the victims with the victim right advocate, with the mechanism that we have now to make sure that you can report, anonymously report on an allegation, with the fact that we are terminating some of the smaller bases that we have that are relatively isolated. We call them temporary operating bases. Sometimes they're not so temporary, and that is not what we shouldn't keep those bases. We also have a much more elaborated way of training and sensitization, and so on and so forth. And I believe that more troop and police contributing countries are taking action whenever there are allegations that are attributed to their personnel, their contingent. I remember that it used to take months and months before a TCC would send a national investigator in cases of an allegation in one of our peacekeeping missions. Now it's a matter of days, so that's better. But the point is that at no point will we be able to say, okay, fine, we have all these policies, they're working well, we're good, because SCA is likely to, the threat of SCA, if you will, is likely to continue. So I believe that one of our colleagues, Under Secretary General Christian Saunders, who's, in a way, I see him as also responsible. I tell him, responsible for helping us really address the scourge of SCA across the system, particularly in the UN system. He talked about it's not about zero tolerance. It's about we won't accept zero action. There has to be action taken. Of course, prevention is absolutely essential. We need to make sure that wherever and whenever we see allegations, and when these allegations are substantiated, then action will be taken. And if again, these allegations are proven to be credible, then there will be accountability, both in terms of the countries already taking action, including legal action, but also in terms of us making sure that these units or individual responsible will be swiftly sort of held into account and repatriated.
Please go ahead.
Just one other question. Has your office been asked to assess any possibility of a redeployment to Haiti on a practical level?
Or rapid deployment
to Haiti.
to Haiti. What we are essentially doing is we're interacting with a number of member states that are concerned about the situation of Haiti. Of course, so are we. As you know, the Secretary General has been advocating on many occasions sending an enforcement troop, and we're talking about enforcement, so it's different from UN peacekeeping. We're ready to provide advice or whatever kind of indication that we may be able to provide to those member states, perhaps based on the experience that the UN has on Haiti. But the point is about making sure that there will be an adequate response to the security challenges in Haiti, and that response, it is the view of the UN, it is the view of the Secretary General, is about enforcement, given the level of violence that currently exists in Haiti.
Great. Jean-Pierre, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And hope we will see you before next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.